I'd like to introduce Professor Keith Hall and his illustrious group. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, you got to stay with me, okay? We have 45 minutes. We're going to try to get it all in, but I need your energy, okay? It's after lunch, but we got to turn it up. Are you with me? Okay, all right. So, really quickly, I want to introduce everybody to, yes, I'm Keith Hall. I teach jazz drum set at Western Michigan University, and these are my colleagues. Please welcome from New York City and New Orleans on the bass, John Hebert. Also from New York City and Pennsylvania on the piano, Matthew Freese. And these gentlemen have been teaching together for less than 5 years at Western. They moved here from New York, and I'm very happy that they came to me in Kalamazoo. Pretty great. They both have new CDs out. I think they have some with them actually, but they're fantastic musicians, so please check them out. And our ringer for the day on the guitar from Byron Center High School, filling in for Matt Landon, who became ill yesterday. Please put your hands together for Matt Barr on the guitar. So this is going to be a micro version of what we did at Western in December. We offered a jazz rhythm section day, and we had about 50 participants from around the state, educators and students, and it was really fantastic. Some of you were there. And so this will be a micro version of that. And if you want to know when the next one will be, it will be next December. And so follow us on social media, WMU Jazz Studies. You can find out what's going on there, or go to WMUJazz.com. And if you have the app for the event, do you have the app on your phone? Are you keeping up with it? Okay, if you go to the session right now, you can see the materials there. So you can view them later on your computer, email them to yourself. It's hard to see on the phone, but many of the things that we're going to talk about today are on a PDF, so you can go give those to your students, or you can practice them yourself. So hopefully you'll check that out. Today we're going to talk about a few things. Number one, we're going to talk about the role of each instrument in the rhythm section. We're going to talk about the two-feel and the four-feel. How many of you know what the two-feel is? Okay, not enough. And then we're going to talk about comping, which is accompanying or complementing. And we're going to talk about how the two chordal instruments are going to work together. Usually there's a real rub there with the band. So when we have guitar and piano together, we're going to talk about some strategies to get those guys playing together. And then we're going to hopefully leave some room for questions. If there is a question that you have today that you don't get a chance to ask us in the session or afterwards, please get a hold of us. Our information is on that PDF on the app. So we're available and happy to talk to you about anything. So there's a few things, 3 things that I want you to remember today, and these all involve action words. Are you ready for action? Yeah. I can't hear you. Okay. The first phrase I want you to remember, and this is on the PDF as well, it is listen to classic jazz recordings and each other on the bandstand. The key word there is what?
Listen.
Listen. What is it again?
Listen.
Listen. That's the most important thing that we can do today and in life. Okay. It's a good life lesson here. The second thing is practice your instrument and know your role. Practice and know. 2 more action words. The third phrase I want you to remember is focus on the rhythm and play with confidence and intention. Okay? If you do those 3 things, I think we're gonna accomplish a lot of things. Those are things that we try to remember. So who's here? Do I have any drummers in the house? Okay. How about bass players? Guitarists? Pianists? Okay. And educators? Okay. Everybody that's not an educator, stand up and let's hear it for the educators. I'm serious. Come on. You guys are glorious. Yeah. Well, that was a little weak, but we're gonna continue to turn it up. I am grateful to be with you educators here today. I always am. You guys are the heroes. So thank you for everything you're doing, especially in these times. So in the rhythm section, The setup is really important. Now, we've set up a little differently for demonstration because I want you to be able to see all of us, but in a band situation, the rhythm section would be closed in here so that we're tight. We want to get close, okay? So the first thing you do is set up your rhythm section nice and tight. The bass player is always going to be on my ride cymbal side, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so when we think about swing, this session is called Help! My jazz rhythm section is not swinging. How many educators have thought that before? Yes. Okay. I've thought that in bands, not with these guys, but it's not swinging. What do we do? Right? We think about swing. What is swing? What is swing? Is it a rhythm written on a page? Are they numbers that we count? What is swing? Who said that? Swing is a feeling. Swing is a feeling. How are you going to know what swing feels like? Read it in a book? Listen to me talk about it? No! We're going to what? Back to our first word, listen. Listen to classic jazz recordings. That's the source, folks, okay? That is the source. The originals, not the demos that come with the Kendor charts. Or Hal Leonard, God bless him, right? Wonderful, wonderful tools. Go to the source, okay? We have to go to the source. That is where it's at. So listen, that's how we're going to know. When I'm playing drums, I'm not thinking about my daughter playing drums. I'm thinking about Philly Joe Jones and Sonny Payne and Ed Blackwell and all my heroes, and I'm trying to emulate them because that's the feeling that I know. That's the sound that I know. So if you get nothing else today, remember, it's important to listen so that we know what this feels like. And if we're all listening to the same things, when we come together, we have the same frame of reference. And then we know when it's swinging and when it's not. Okay? All right. So, swing. It is a feeling. Thank you to Myra Music for providing this beautiful Yamaha drum set. Thank you, Joe LaJoy and the wonderful folks at Myra Music. So, on the drums, there are some key things that we need to do. And there are a few pages on that handout that are just pages I pulled out from my book. We're going to go over some of those. So, the first thing, on the drums, the role of the drums is to what? Play loud?
Yeah.
Of course it is. No, the role of the drums is to conduct the band and drive the bus. If the drummer's doing their job, the conductor can take a break. All right, so the drummer is the conductor of the band. Our job is to play the time, to provide the swing feel. Now, where do we provide that swing feel? From where do we provide that swing feel? It starts right here on the ride cymbal. How many of you know this is the most important part of the drum set, the jazz drum set? This is it. This is not it. Okay, that's 2 and 4. That's important. This is the most important thing, the ride cymbal. And some of you that know me know what we call this. This is spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang. Are you with me? Yeah. You did, right? Okay, so spang-a-lang, say it with me. Spang-a-lang, 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 spang-a-lang. Okay, that feels good. Because it's swinging, right? We were all doing it together, and it feels good. All right? So, ride cymbal, most important thing. For many young drummers, this is an afterthought. And this has to be the most important thing. This is where my eyes are most of the time. All right? So, ride cymbal, 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. I'm playing the bass drum very softly. I'm feathering the bass drum. Educators, please do not tell your drummers to stop playing the bass drum. This is the most powerful part of the drum set, of the ensemble. And they can really direct and conduct the band with the bass drum when they do it right. So just teach them to do it the right way. Feathering on quarter notes with the bass player. All right? If it's too loud, tell them to put their leg down and use just their toe, not the whole leg. Okay? We want to hear that. We want to feel the quarter note there. All right? So, when I'm playing the ride cymbal and I'm playing the bass drum on quarter notes, which instrument do you think I'm going to connect with?
The bass.
The bass, right? The bass. We're going to do that in a minute. Then with my left hand, I'm going to be comping. I'm going to be accompanying or complementing what's going on with the snare drum. Sometimes I also do that with my bass drum. But for now, we're going to do it with the snare drum. And if I'm doing that with the snare drum, which other instruments do you think I'll be connecting with the snare drum? The piano player and the guitar player. Because they're going to be comping. We're going to get to that, okay? So, basic jazz time. Feel the bass drum?
Yeah.
You can feel it, right? It's not this. It's providing a nice low foundation. Moving forward nice and strong. And it's really important that all of these things are lined up. That's not swinging. They only do that for a couple beats. It's really hard, but that's not swinging. So I have to be swinging amongst myself first, right? There's 4 people here, 4 instruments. All right? This is the focus. That's where my eyes were. I'm always looking at my hand and I'm looking at the cymbal. Okay? Where your eyes go, that's where your attention goes, right? You took driver's training. You know that. So that is basically what I'm doing on the drum set. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues and let them talk about their role, and then we'll combine things. Please welcome John Abear on the bass.
All right, John. Good.
It's on. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for being here today. The bass, roles, function of the bass, playing the roots of the chords, hooking up with the drums, the ride cymbal. Always assume that you are the only harmonic and rhythmic instrument on the bandstand at all times. Okay, bass players. I find that most high school big band charts that I'm assuming you're dealing with, most of the bass lines are written out for you. So if you are just simply reading music on the page, you're not really making music. Okay, you need to understand what those notes are, why they're there, and how are they functioning with the harmonic side of the music. Okay, so then you have the freedom, once you understand that, to play what you want. So if you don't really have that foundation, you're not going to be able to make music. You're only reading notes on the page. There's not a deep understanding of those notes and what they're doing. Does that make sense? So if you're B flat 7, you're playing a B flat, and you're like, why am I playing a B flat on a B flat 7? If you don't know that, you really need to know what that is. Okay? That's the root. We all understand what that is, yes? All right. So imagine the bass as a piano, okay? Now, piano has all the notes in front of you and can play, let's say, 10 notes at a time, maybe 30 or so this way. If you put your leg involved, you know. But for the most part, it's 10 notes, all right? So you have to imagine the bass as a piano, except you're only playing one note at a time. So, you know, if I could play a B flat 7 chord, it's a little tricky, but something like that. But that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, just kind of playing that the whole time, right? So what as a bassist, what I'm thinking is taking those chords and expanding them on the bass, one note at a time. So therein, you really need to understand what the harmony is and what, you know, how that functions, right? So B flat 7, we have the root. B flat, what's the third? fifth, seventh. All right. So now this becomes this. Okay? Everyone hear that? It's a B flat 7? Okay. So you have that, you're dealing with just with those notes now. Now you have to deal with playing in tune and playing in time. So now we're dealing with listening, going back to that lovely word that Keith introduced. Listening to what? What are we listening to as bass players?
The drums.
I'm sorry?
The drummer, the ride cymbal.
Ride cymbal, yes, yes. We're really trying to lock into that ride cymbal. So this, me and Keith have technically eloped, okay? We are married, common law at this point. That's what you need to have happen. You need to marry the drummer, bass players, okay? Your quarter notes are inseparable from their ride cymbal pattern. That's number one. If you can't, we're talking about feel, 2 and 4 feel. If you can't quite get the four quarter notes to a bar hooking up with the drummer, simplify it and go to the 2 feel, meaning on beats 1 and 3. And when we do that, we're mostly dealing with roots and fifths. So you're eliminating 2 other notes, so it makes it a little bit easier. So what happens when you simplify things, you can put your focus on one major thing, which is just keeping time. So I'd rather hear a rhythm section with a bass player playing in 2 and swinging like crazy rather than playing in 4 and it's all over the place. And I can't really discern what's happening, clarity. So this as opposed to this. Yeah. The divorce papers are in. It's a lot to take in and a lot to sort of expound in words in a short amount of time. But you really want to, lay into that time feel, and if you can grasp the concept of harmonically what's going on whatever chart you're playing, or dealing with the blues today, and understand that fully, I think that will take you leaps and bounds rather than just reading the notes on the page. We're trying to create music and play music and make music together, and it's a dialogue. And if I'm just reading all the time and they're trying to get my attention, I can't react and respond in a moment's notice. My eyes are just glued to a page. So bass players, get off that page and really understand what's there, and that will give you so much more freedom to express yourself. I want to say one other thing, and I will read this for you if you don't mind. This is something that you can meditate on. A mature musician is one who has taken the time to study the tradition of any musical idiom before he or she can truly conceptualize that music. So we gotta listen. That's 1, 2, 3 is listen, and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Listen to jazz. If you want to play jazz and swing, you gotta listen to that music. And I'm not talking about you go to big band or jazz band rehearsal and you listen to a big band tune on a CD and then you just play the charts. I'm talking about after class, driving to school, walking home, music 24/7, okay? Jazz 24/7, not just occasionally. I'm gonna, no Dua Lipa. You can do that every now and then. But Miles, okay, Train, Monk, Mingus. How can you understand this music if you've never listened to it and you don't listen to it? It's a language, okay? And I know that sounds cliche, and you probably all heard that before, but if you're gonna speak this language, you gotta move to the country, and the country is jazz with a capital J. you dig. All right.
So, speaking of Miles Davis, let's demonstrate a two-feel. His 50s band with Philly Joe Jones and Paul Chambers are a great example of what a two-feel sounds like. So we're going to play two choruses of a two-feel, right? Bass, drum, and bass on 1 and 3, and then we're going to go to a 4-feel playing quarter notes. See if you can hear the difference. Hope you can. Has a certain feel to it, right? Step, 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 cut, step, right? You can dance to it. Come on, dog player.
This sounds great.
Right, so there's a different feel, right? There's more momentum in that 4 feel. But there's still some momentum in the 2 feel as well. It's got to stay bouncy. It's got to make you want to dance. You should be able to dance to this music. We're going to move on to the chordal instruments because I know we're running short on time.
I like the dance part. You know,
Yeah.
band directors, when you listen to your band and you're thinking they're not swinging, they're probably not dancing. So I like what I do with some of my students is I make them dance in class. You know, walk around the room and dance. You know, and if you can't do that, you're not feeling the music, and that you're not going to be able to swing. It's very simple, but oh, so important. Okay, it's in your body, it's in your soul. No, sorry.
Okay, so we've been hearing a lot about kind of the hookup of people kind of playing the same thing. Like we heard a really great example of the bass and the bass drum playing exactly the same rhythm, and like how that connects, and how the bass really connects to the time that's within the ride cymbal. And what we just got to at the end there was talking about the sensation of it, and kind of the feel, the difference between the 2 feel and the 4 feel. And as a comping instrument, you know, when we're playing guitar or we're playing piano, one of the tough things, especially for a young student, is you've got a whole bunch of notes to deal with. We're not just dealing with rhythm anymore, right? I mean, yeah, there's notes in the bass too, but there's fewer of them. And so, but I like to really keep especially in a jazz rhythm section, I like to keep the focus on the rhythm. I mean, after all, we call it a rhythm section. We don't call it a harmony section, right?
Right.
So that still has to be number 1. And for me, I think, I'm sure all you band directors out there have given the speech to your band about, okay, we have whole notes, and the band is playing whole notes, but you still have to all change to the next whole note on the same 8th note, right? The subdivisions still need to exist, and you still need to click and pop in on the next beat so that we sound together as a band. In the 2 feel that they were just playing, I was actually just focusing in on watching John's hands, and I could see how precisely he was flipping from note to note and changing. And that applies really strongly to comping instruments. The first place I like to make people pay attention to is just coming down on the quarter note, nice and strongly, nice and clearly. Can we just play a little B flat? I'm just going to comp for a second. So even just playing downbeats. O1, O1. that connects with the swing feel. And I'm not doing much, right? I'm playing one note. I'm playing one chord every measure. But this is the last example that Keith had on his list. This is playing with authority and confidence, right? That is truly something to inspire your students to do, because you can do a lot with a little if you're confident about it. Okay, so if I did that and that's all I did, okay, that's kind of boring, right? You can admit it. Part of the job of the comping instruments, rhythmically, is to pay attention to kind of nudging the music forward. It's something that we hear happening in Keith's ride cymbal. So again, as a comping instrument, I'm also listening to that and I'm connecting to the phrasing that he's playing there. We use syncopation to do that. When we learn syncopation, we a lot of times learn it as 1 and 2, 3 and 4. Like, okay, it's the and of 1 and it's the and of 3. And in jazz, and especially as a comping instrument, I like to think of it always as it's an anticipation of what's coming next. It's not a reaction to what just happened, right? We're always taking this music and we're trying to move it forwards, right? When you count a tune off, you're not going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And no, if you want it to swing, you're going to go a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, a 3, 4. That is connected to what's coming next, right? We're pushing it forward. And I'll use that in my comping. We do the same thing we just did. And now listen to, I'm gonna start with just the downbeats, and then I'm gonna start to push them forward, and you'll hear how that connects to what the ride cymbal's doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are downbeats, right? Start to anticipate some of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Right? So everything I'm doing, I'm actually getting to the chord and I'm getting to the beat before they do, right? The chord that I play is actually the chord that's coming up in the next measure, so I'm always thinking ahead. What's the next chord? What's the next chord? Okay? All right, so we can break this into the rhythm that is kind of universal on all of our instruments is a rhythm that we call the Charleston Rhythm. Anybody heard of the Charleston dance from back in the 30s? Dun, 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 dun. I'm not going to do it. Just sit on that piano bench and dance. I'll dance in your class, John. I want you to hear it. Nobody wants to see that. Okay, so the Charleston Rhythm. Can we all sing this together? Charleston, Charleston. You can sing it, clap it, whatever you want. Charleston, Charleston, Charleston. Keep going. So what's great about this rhythm is it has that strong downbeat I was talking about, and it has the syncopation. So we have the downbeat on beat 1, right? Downbeat. Downbeat. And then we have the anticipation of beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. All right. So we're kind of with that simple little rhythm, we've kind of found a connection to both of those places that we want to be. Okay? Connecting that back to the 2 and 4 feel that we were just playing, for me as the comping instrument, I hear a real difference in the dance that I want to do to those 2 feels, whether it's a 2 feel or a 4 feel. Okay? When they're in the 2 feel, 3, a 1, a 3, I feel like I just kind of want to dance with my partner, you know, nice and gentle, kind of rocking back and forth. A 1, a 3. And then when it goes into 4, now, a 1, 2, a 3, 4, there's just all this energy that happens. And as a result, I'm going to put a whole bunch more of the syncopation and the anticipations in there. Okay? Can we play a chorus of 2 feel, and then we're going to go into 4, and listen to the difference in how I react to what they're doing. Okay? So if you hear that little bouncing back and forth, 2 feel, the nice slow dance, and when that energy kicks in, and how everything changes and shifts. 1, 2, 3. Lots of downbeats, right? Little Charleston Rhythm. So there's a really nice, that's kind of how the chordal instruments connect, okay? Okay, now there's a whole science to what are the notes I'm choosing, all right? I would really encourage you, for the young students, to keep this simple. Keep the harmonic part of it simple. You can get so much. Every chord, the third and the seventh. The third tells us if it's major or minor. The seventh tells us if it's hip or not. Right? So if you're covering those two notes, that's kind of all you need. Can we do the same thing? Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I'm playing with confidence and clearly, and I'm connecting with the rhythm, it works, right? So I encourage you to get the harmony simplified. They can work on that at home, but when you're trying to get your rhythm section swinging, it's about the rhythm. Cool? All right. The one final thing, we've had Matt sitting here doing nothing for the entire time. Sorry about that. What do you do when you have? Because basically Matt and I are doing the exact same thing. We have the same role. And what do you do when you have two people doing the same thing in your band? That, especially when it's something that's not written out. You know, these rhythms aren't written out for us. It's not like having your saxophone section all play the same part. So what I like to think of is just try to get them to not do the exact same thing, right? So ways you can do that, have them take turns. Yeah. Right? We could do something where I comp for one chorus, Matt comps for the next chorus, and then I comp for a chorus, and then Matt comps. We could do something where I comp for one soloist, Matt comps for the rhythm section, or comps for the solo section that saxophones, I can't talk all of a sudden. The saxophones are playing. We can kind of break it up that way. That's easy, right? So that's one thing, and that's something that as a director you can suggest. It's something as a rhythm section that we can negotiate in the moment. I've done that plenty of times, okay? That's like the easy way out. The other one is just get them playing different kinds of things. And one of the easiest ones of those is where one musician is playing something very regular, like a very regular rhythm, repeated rhythm, very familiar. That frees up the other one to be a little more interactive. The classic example of this comes from the Count Basie Orchestra, with a guitar player by the name of Freddie Green, who played this giant guitar. We didn't even have an amp. He just strummed the heck out of it, playing quarter notes, just quarter notes. Guess what that lines up with? The bass drum, right? Okay. You ready to play some jazz? Yeah. All right. We're gonna get Matt here playing some. He's gonna be our Freddie Green for a minute, and he's gonna play just the quarter notes. And let's start with just the three of you, and then I'm gonna layer in on top of it, and you'll hear how much freedom I get to have because he's being regular. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Really nicely connected to the bass and drums, right? This allows me to have all the room for all the syncopation stuff. Works. We're out of each other's way, even though we're both playing at the same time. Can we reverse this? It's a little harder because there isn't really the Freddie Green on the piano that's going to play something that obvious. Okay? But I can play less, which will allow Matt to play more. So let's try a couple of choruses of that. Okay? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So it still kind of works, right? It's a little bit of a different sort of thing. It's a little more interactive. It's more challenging.
Yeah.
Okay? This takes us back to listening. Listening to each other. Listening, how am I going to fit in with him? How is he going to fit in with me? Listening to examples of people doing this. In that packet that you got, there are listening examples, suggestions of, in particular, guitar and piano combinations, where you can maybe get some inspiration on how does this work. Because it's a wonderful, if you do it right, it is so much fun. Like when I play with a really great guitar player, it's so much fun. Like the shapes and colors that we can create, you know, the surprises by people dropping in and out, playing different textures. We can think in range, like if I'm playing up high, Matt might play down low. If I'm playing long notes, Matt might play short notes. So whatever you can come up with, but listen and try to figure out how to fit the pieces together. Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the masks, you can't see how much I'm smiling while we're playing, but I'm having a ball because it feels great. Because the rhythm is happening and it's swinging. Did anyone else feel that? Right? We felt it. We felt it. It's a vibe. It's energy, right? I mean, we felt the swing. It's not in a book, right? It's not in our head. It's right here. This is where the music comes from. Right here. Right there. That's where the music comes from. We're going to build now. We're going to layer us all in. I'll start, right? Kind of go back to the beginning, recap everybody's role, and we'll play a chorus each as we layer in, and then we'll take it out. Yeah, go ahead.
Just, Matthew said something about, you know, keeping it simple. And that, you know, for the Freddie Green comping pattern, for bass players, just playing the root on all quarter notes is very sufficient. If it's grooving, it's totally fine. You don't have to play a bunch of notes and feel like you're really creating something. You can keep it as simple as you want, as long as it's grooving. And you're changing the roots when they need to be changed to the next chord. On the beat, correct. So if it's too complicated to play all the walking notes that are in the chart, or trying to figure that out for yourself, just play the roots and make it swing. Thank you.
stuff, right?
No.
That was very simple. A lot of these concepts are very simple, but if you execute them like we hopefully demonstrated, it feels great. I could have sat there all day. The only reason I'm stopping is because Mark Townley's bigger than I am, and he's going to come up and take me off the stage. Thank you all for attending today. It's been wonderful to play for you and interact with you, and we'll be around if you have some questions for us. Please also get a hold of us online, follow us on the Insta and all the good stuff. Follow us. Did I forget anything?
I have one little quick thing. I skipped all of the nerdy jazz theory harmony stuff, but if you look in that packet, there's a whole bunch of voicings both for guitar and for piano, and it's kind of some sciencey ways to kind of develop your own voicings. So take those with you and take a peek and share them with your students.
Yeah, there's a lot of information in that packet, so please take that. One more time, Matt Barr on the guitar. Matthew Priest on the piano. John Revere on the bass. And Steve Hall. Also, if you'd like to know more about what's happening with jazz at Western Michigan University, we have some brochures on the table. There's also some swag from my good friends from Zildjian and Vic Firth over there. But please take some brochures, share them with your friends and your enemies. And wonderful to see you all. Keep swinging. Stick around for Myron Center and then the All-State Jazz Band. God bless.